have the floor, please. The floor.
Well, dear Ambassador, dear old, hello from Athens. I would like, first of all, to salute the Foreign Minister of the Republic of Georgia, dear David, Your Excellencies, dear Ambassadors, dear Secretary General, dear Commissioner for Human Rights, dear Presidents of the Parliamentary Assembly, the European Court of Human Rights, the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities, the Conference of International Non-Governmental Organizations. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be with all you today in this transfer of chairmanship meeting. First of all, I would like to say that a greeting and a message from the President of the Hellenic Republic regarding this event has been already published through our website, the Presidency website. And I would like to invite you at this point to watch together a recorded message from the Greek Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, on the occasion of the start of the Greek chairmanship.
Greece is assuming the chairmanship of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe under the emergency circumstances imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic. In such an extraordinary context, it is even more imperative to highlight the fundamental principles and values lying at the core of the Council of Europe's mission: democracy, rule of law, and protection of human rights. In this framework, the main theme of the Greek chairmanship is protection of human life and public health in the context of a pandemic, effectively responding to a sanitary crisis while fully respecting human rights and the principles of democracy and the rule of law. The European Convention on Human Rights foresees the possibility of temporary and permissible limitations from its provisions in emergency circumstances, inter alia, for reasons of public health. However, the pandemic should not become a pretext for not complying with our commitment to the fundamental principles and values. In Greece, we managed to strike a fair balance between the protection of human life and public health and the rights of individuals concerned by using the art of persuasion. I am proud of the perseverance shown by the Greek people and their high degree of compliance to the measures adopted, always upon the advice of the experts. As all crises, the pandemic has offered opportunities. In my country, we succeeded in developing digital technologies at an unprecedented pace. Tasks that in normal times would have required months were completed in 3 weeks. Due to the extraordinary current circumstances, the Greek chairmanship will mainly run digitally, and eventually it will be a digital chairmanship, an e-chairmanship. E-chairmanship will provide transmission of events and actions of the Council of Europe to all citizens through the new technologies. This will bring the Council of Europe even closer to the citizens, and especially the young people. This is particularly important in November this year, when we will commemorate at the Ministerial Conference in Athens the 70th anniversary of a historic milestone, the signing of the European Convention on Human Rights in Rome on the 4th of November, 1950. The young generation will remain in the focus of our efforts as a key priority. So safeguarding the right of young generations to enjoy cultural heritage unaffected by the impact of climate change will be given special attention. The Greek Ministry of Culture will organize a digital exhibition dedicated to the damage inflicted on monuments of cultural heritage by the effects of climate change. Amidst these times of global uncertainty, we have set up an ambitious agenda for the Council, guided by our trust in the organization and the values it stands for. In these endeavors, we count on the support of all member states of the Council of Europe.
Well, if I may take back the floor. Well, okay. Well, if I could be in Strasbourg now, we had the pleasure to shake hands with you, with all of you. We limit ourselves in sending you greetings through this camera, a warm regard from Athens, and let me present you the team that has been working for this presidency. Let me present on my right-hand side, Ambassador Perakis, Professor Perakis, who has been the permanent representative for years in Strasbourg of Greece, Ambassador Karnousou on my far right-hand side, Ambassador Paresoglu, and my Chief of Staff, Dimitris Kirmikiroglu, at the end of this image. And on my left, it stands my legal aid and advisor, Mrs. Mirogianni, and Ambassador Kapodistrias. First of all, I would like to start by thanking the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Georgia, Mr. David Zalkalyani, for his presentation of the achievements of the outgoing presidency. Dear David, I'm not there physically to congratulate you for your work, not formally received the key of the chair's office. I already entrusted our Ambassador Bekelitis to receive it on my behalf. As the incoming chairmanship, and on behalf of everyone around this table and in this video conference, I would like to thank you for the hard work that you and your country have invested in this difficult semester that you chaired the Committee of Ministers. Your contribution, especially in the field of the environment, which has been your key priority, is an important legacy, and that will be taken up by our chairmanship. In this regard, I would like also to welcome today's adoption of the Declaration for the Environment and Human Rights by the outgoing Georgian chairmanship and then two incoming chairmanships of Greece and Germany. We all know the difficulties that you had to face when the sanitary crisis broke out. From one day to another, all scheduled meetings and events had to be either cancelled or realized through digital means. We appreciate your efforts and congratulate you and your team on a successful chairmanship. Ladies and gentlemen, it was about 2 months ago, on March 9th, when I was in Strasbourg myself in order to present the priorities and the program of the incoming Greek chairmanship to the Secretary General. COVID-19 had already made its presence in Europe, threatening human life and public health. That visit was my very last official and actual trip abroad. The day after, a series of precautionary measures were adopted in order to combat the spreading of the virus. During the 2 months that followed, we saw COVID-19 involved into a pandemic. We witnessed the loss of thousands of human lives, and I would like to express my sincere condolences to all those who have lost their loved ones. Many more were in need of treatment, and some are still in the intensive care units of our hospitals. The impact of the sanitary crisis is unprecedented, especially for a period of peace, including, unfortunately, the sad toll regarding the loss of life. Since its outbreak, COVID-19 has been a major challenge to us all: governments, institutions, national health systems, societies, and families. The protection of human life and health as a public good has been and will be to be a top priority, as nothing is placed above human life. To put it in the words of the ancient Greek philosopher Protagoras, man is the measure of all things. For the first time in history of mankind, we decided to put human life, and especially the life of vulnerable groups, above economic activity. However, this pandemic is not only a threat to human life. It proved that not only human beings are vulnerable, but also states, institutions, economies. It's also a threat to the values that stand in the foundation of our democratic culture. The restrictions imposed in order to prevent the spreading of the pandemic inevitably touch human rights and fundamental freedoms, which are an integral part of a democratic society governed by the rule of law. We have found ourselves in front of an extraordinary situation. In order to protect one human right, namely the right to health as a public good, restrictions have been imposed on the exercise of a series of other human rights, namely the rights to free movement, property, access to justice, work, and others. It is crucial that the temporary limitations imposed in the free exercise of human rights and fundamental freedoms are subject to certain conditions as foreseen in the European Convention for Human Rights. Besides the need to be temporary, these limitations must also be based on the principles of proportionality and necessity, and at the same time, they must be reviewed on a regular basis. In different words, the adopted measures must comply with our commitment to the fundamental principles and values that lie at the core of the Council of Europe. And I would like to thank the Secretary General for the valuable guideline that she presented in her toolkit for member states last April. Initially, we had chosen the youth of Europe to be our main theme for our chairmanship. Given, however, this unprecedented situation, the Greek chairmanship decided to bring to the forefront of the dialogue of the Council of Europe the sanitary crisis and its implications on human rights and fundamental freedoms. As a result, the main theme of the Greek chairmanship became the following: protection of human life and public health in the context of a pandemic, effectively responding to a sanitary crisis in full respect for human rights and the principles of democracy and the rule of law. Based on the need to respect the great collective struggle to protect human life and public health, we have put in place the necessary infrastructure so that a significant number of meetings and events during our chairmanship to be held through digital means. Therefore, our chairmanship will be a digital one, or as we call it, an e-chairmanship. This will be achieved through a digital platform connected to the official website and the social media of the Greek chairmanship. The main theme regarding the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on human rights and fundamental freedoms is placed above the thematic priorities that I had presented to the Secretary General in March, as I mentioned earlier. In particular, our vision is a well-qualified youth, inspired by European values. The Greek chairmanship will highlight the need to invest in the young generation with an emphasis on the protection of the rights of the children. So, a special thematic is dedicated to the younger generation under the title Investing in the Future, the Rights of the Youth. This builds on the adoption last January of the strategy of Council of Europe on Youth 2030, which is expected to form the basis for the implementation of the program Youth for Democracy in the course of the next decade and provide the necessary political thrust for it. Additionally, a series of special thematic priorities linked to the rights, hopes, and concerns of the younger generation will be highlighted. These thematic priorities are education, a democratic culture in the digital era, children as vulnerable persons, unaccompanied migrant minors, children at risk of poverty, trafficking, war, sexual abuse, children suffering violence, disabled children, etc. Safeguarding the right of younger generation to enjoy cultural heritage unaffected from the impact of climate change, as our Prime Minister already stated. And of course, social rights in the framework of the Council of Europe, impact of the pandemic crisis on the right of access of vulnerable social groups to health as a public good. These thematic areas have been updated and enriched with additional aspects linked to the pandemic crisis in order to reflect all the challenges triggered by the pandemic. Dear friends, Greece joined the Council of Europe in August 1949, only a few months after its founding. We are proud to actively participate in the work of the Council of Europe at all instances and all levels. Last time Greece assumed the chairmanship of the Committee of Ministers was back in 1998, when an important opening to the region of Caucasus took place. We are committed to the principles and values that the Council of Europe stands for. We believe that the main responsibility and role of every chairmanship is to guarantee the continuity of the work of the Council of Europe. We believe that the spirit of commitment to these principles and values displayed by the Council of Europe in the Greek case back in 1969, and thanks to the initiative of certain member states, the Council of Europe stood in the defense of human rights and fundamental freedoms in Greece during this dark period until 1974, when democracy returned to Greece. We believe that this spirit needs to prevail again, because major challenges demand collective responses. Let me now refer to some of the key events under the Greek chairmanship. We are aiming to host a high-level digital discussion with the participation of all of you in the beginning of June, open to the public and dedicated to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on human rights and fundamental freedoms. Also, it would be a pleasure to welcome you all in Athens in November, when we plan to host the 130th session of the Committee of Ministers on November 4th this year, provided, of course, that the circumstances will permit it. Our objective is to have a declaration adopted on the issue of the impact of pandemics on human rights and the fundamental freedoms. On the same day, we plan to hold a commemorative event to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the signing of the European Convention of Human Rights. The Ministry of Justice is planning to hold in Athens a ministerial conference on the independence of justice and the rule of law. And the Ministry of Education plans to hold a ministerial conference on the founding of the Observatory for the Study of History. Ladies and gentlemen, in these critical moments, Europe is being tested. It is in our hands to do everything possible so that it comes out of this crisis stronger. In Greece, we achieved to flatten the curve of the pandemic, which has been our government's main goal. This, we did not do it alone. It took courage and discipline from the Greek people to observe the hard measures imposed. And throughout the crisis, we have built a relation of trust by continuously informing them, presenting them with the challenges and the dilemmas, and of course, asking them for their support. In the meantime, the Parliament and the government never ceased to operate, while all the measures taken were ratified by the Parliament. In order to succeed in this battle, we need the confidence of our citizens. In the same spirit, I believe we can say that the success of our chairmanship and our endeavor to promote the values and principles of the Council of Europe will be measured by the level of our commitment to these values and principles. And personally, I'm very flattered by the fact that being a member of the Parliamentary Assembly for more than 15 years of the Council of Europe, I have the honor to preside the Committee of Ministers for the next 6 months, and looking forward to express our commitment to these values. I'm looking forward to working with you all, and hopefully to be able to meet you very soon in person, when we are going to have won this battle for life, and we will be able to visit each other again. I would like also to wish you all, for you and your families, the best of health. Before saying goodbye, I would like to invite you all to watch a video that we have prepared for this Greek chairmanship. Thank you all.